Welcome to the System to Success show. On this show, we'll cover the best growth advice from top CEOs in North America and beyond. On each episode, your host, Jay Crutchfield, he's a former software engineer turned entrepreneur, created and maintained online marketing, online sales, and fulfillment systems for global brands. He offers non-traditional wisdom about business systems mastery, while his guests share the story of how they built their companies. Jay and his guests talk entrepreneurship, digital marketing, strategy, and business principles. But they also talk about what it means to be human with all the ups and downs, advances, and setbacks. And what he does is he takes his information and strategies that has helped catapult global brands and brings that to the small business owner to give them that advantage. Make sure to subscribe and follow for more of these business system mastery principles.
One day this woman asked me, she goes, "Oh, that was a really fun day. I loved it." She says, why do you do that? Like, why do you speak on that topic? And I said, I don't know. Like nobody had ever asked me. I never thought about it. And I thought, oh, well, I guess it's because I come from the overly serious family, right? And I'm being a rebel. And everything was just about work and getting a lot of stuff done. And, my parents didn't value laughter or play. And, I remember coming home at 10 years old. I'd heard this thing at school. And I said to my Mom, why don't cannibals like to eat clowns? And she said, I don't know, dear. Why? Because they taste funny. Cute. Cute kid's joke, right? But my mother says, that doesn't make any sense, dear. Clowns don't frequent the jungles of Africa where cannibals could be found.
So serious.
I remember thinking, oh no, she doesn't even get humor, right? Not only value it, didn't even get it, right? And so, you follow in your parents' footsteps. I followed in my parents' footsteps, and I thought, oh, I'll just be like my mom, I'll be really serious, and I'll just get a lot of stuff done. And at the beginning of university, I was doing 3 part-time jobs. I was working really hard, and then I snapped. I completely burned out in my early 20s. And I was doing this public speaking workshop, and the woman says to me, how old are you? And I said, I'm 23. Why? And she said, well, you act like a 45-year-old insurance underwriter. You're like so boring and serious, and you're like 23. If you're this serious now, what are you going to be like in 20 years?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you look a lot older than 23 too, just honest feedback. And I thought, I gotta do something about this. And so I went on this mission, right, to have more fun in my life. And I started doing comedy improvisation, and I lightened up, and I ended up, spending many nights a week in these comedy improv classes, laughing and learning comedy skills, and starting a comedy troupe. And it completely changed my personality. Like, I was less worried and, more at ease, and I was more popular, and I was more outgoing. And that was a big part of my journey with public speaking, is lightening up. And so when I realized that's why I do it, I want to help people, it had such a difference for me. I started telling that story as a speaker, and it was very powerful for people. As soon as I told the story about why I speak on what I speak, and what was the before and after of me in my life, everything from my health got better, and my brain worked better, and I loved life instead of hating it, right? And so I started to tell that story as a speaker, and then I realized, okay, a lot of people started to refer me, not by my name, but they go, the woman who talks on having been super serious and then lightened up, and they tell my story. I don't remember her name, but I remember her story. And so I realized people don't remember names. That's the linear, logical, short-term memory. People remember stories. So your story shouldn't just be in your speech. Your story should be on social media. So I put that story into my bio on LinkedIn, and I put that story into my bio on my homepage, and I did a blog about my background story and put that on social media. And all of a sudden I had like way more engagement on social media. And so I thought, stories, and anyone who has any background in social media will tell you, if you use stories, your engagement level goes up dramatically. And then, something like Facebook will show your posts to way more people. So I always tell all my speaking clients to use stories in a variety of ways. Well, and I could tell you a few other ways if you like, but I just wanted to stop there and see if you had a question.
Yes. I would definitely like to hear more ways. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, like, there's so many ways to use stories, but say you wanted to do an Instagram poll. And we did that. Like, what's the best way to open a speech? And then people would give their responses about what they thought was the best way to open a speech. And then we told a story about why we came up with the poll, what happened when we did the poll, what were the results, what did we learn, what might you learn? So it was a 5-part story structure, and told that. So that was one way we used Instagram. Another thing you can do is tell your story on video, your why story, and post that on your about page and on YouTube. Another thing we often do is the behind the scenes. Like, we do public seminars, and so sometimes people like to see the behind the scenes. We're getting ready, and it was in London. There was like the tube broke down that went by our hotel, and oh my gosh, nobody's going to make it, and what are we going to do about that? The video guy didn't show up. Like, they were sort of interested in the intense, and we're stacking chairs and telling everybody what to do, and people like that, right? They want to know. They kind of don't want to just see it all perfect when everyone arrives and the curtains open. They kind of want to see you sweating in the back, kind of doing your breathing exercises, and all the speakers getting together, and, like a huddle and a team, and kind of going, give them hell. And so we were posting that, and people were watching it on the way there and kind of going, oh, cool, right? I'm going to be part of this live, real kind of thing. So that could be a fun thing. Any behind, depending on what you speak on, you can use that. Another one is like Snapchat your story of researching your clients. So I did a Snapchat journey. I'd never spoken to hair salon owners. And I thought, ooh, okay, what is their life like? So I Snapchatted like me talking to my salon owner and saying, what are the issues that you face? And her telling me, and going to an esthetician and, that does hair. And I'd ask, like, what's hard about your work? And then Snapchat the whole thing. And then include, here I am speaking at this event, and this is what happened. So people liked that Snapchat journey. And we've had a fun at work contest, and so that we blogged on that and then posted the blogs. So what was the craziest, wildest thing you did at work to create fun at work? And then we had a panel and we judged them, and then we had a winner and a second place, a third place, and 4 runners up, and then we posted the story of each of their fun at work things. So that created lots of engagement and inspired people to do fun stuff. So those are a few examples of using social media with story that really increase engagement.
Wow. Oh, those are some great tips. I want to make sure I capture those too. You spoke about the why story and making sure you have that video posted on social media so people get to know you a little bit better and what you're all about. And then you mentioned that behind the scenes stories. Now, too, I really enjoy those also, too. Just like you said, getting to know just the person a little bit better, and like what goes all into all the process before you even get to the stage. So that's really, really interesting. Just going through those things too. So another question, it's related to just on the story side, but just talking a little bit more about your background. So I know we have some people in the audience right now that they may be in that, in the corporate lifestyle and speaking part-time and want to make that transition to speaking full-time as a career. And so could you share a little bit more about that transition point for you? Could you tell a little bit more about that story, how you transitioned to speaking full-time?
Yeah. Well, it was helpful for me that I worked for a company that sent me out on paid speaking, but that didn't necessarily mean it happened instantly for me when I started my own company. I had a few reviews. So if you have any, testimonials or video footage of you speaking, even if it was for free or it was part of your job, that's the most important thing. So I created a video. I put this was before video was easier to do. And so creating a little video of me, telling a story, me working with an audience so they see that you're not going to melt up there in front of the room. That's the most important thing for a meeting planner to see. And I know many of us know that, but I'm still shocked at how often I see speakers with no video footage and they're wondering why it's so hard for them to get work. And then the minute they make video footage, all of a sudden the meeting planners come after them, right? They put it up on YouTube and they put all these little snippets. That's what I did, actually. This was a huge shift over for me from calling and trying to get people to book me as a speaker to them calling me, is I just got as much footage as possible wherever I could. And then I cut it up into 1-minute segments and I put it on YouTube. And then especially if there were stories, and I put it all over social media. And then I put in these social media tags. I put in motivational speaker. Now, I used to say inspirational speaker because I didn't want to be seen as like Tony Robbins. Everyone thinks Tony Robbins, motivational speaker, but that's the keyword that people type for what I do. So I changed it, motivational speaker. And then I wrote funny because some people want funny. Now, I used to write humorous. Nobody types the word humorous. So you write funny. And then I put my geographic location. So if sometimes people were coming to my city and they didn't want to pay travel for speaker, they would type in the city, see who's local, who would come out to your conference. And then I did my topics as well. So, and then I actually just asked this woman the other day, how did you hear about me? And she said, I typed into Google, funny motivational speaker on change. And I can't tell you how many times people told me that's what they typed in to find me. So that's what goes on all the social media, whether it's a blog or a YouTube or whatever.
Huh. Wow. So you, I'm laughing because of just what you were mentioning on, you put some content out there and then you find out, hey, it sounds good, but people aren't really searching on that. And so you basically look to see what people are actually searching on. So yeah, that's
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I found that out, one, through keyword search, learning how to do keyword searches, but also going to speaker events, right? And I went to National Speakers Association and somebody spoke on that and they just said, this is what they're searching. Right? He had done all the work. So I just took copious notes, and then that had a much bigger effect on my speaking career than almost anything else I learned at the conference, the right keywords.
So making sure you hit those events up where you can definitely learn from other speakers out there. So
yeah, and YouTube videos, because Google owns YouTube, that's where you put all your video footage with all your keywords, because that'll boost you to the top. Like if you put my name in, I get first, I think mostly it's YouTube videos that come up even before my own website.
Okay. So that's another tip. Hope you guys got that down. Definitely use YouTube as a resource to put those clips up of your videos. So what's some of the do's and don'ts of crafting your story?
Okay. Well, having a structure, as we talked about, and knowing the deep universal principle you want people to leave with, and we talked about that. But in addition to that, I think it's really important to answer this question: what's in it for them to listen? And if you can't answer that question, you have to answer that question first before you write the story, because that will frame how you write the story. You know, like I often ask people, you know, what was an intense experience in your life that you learned a lot from, that, you know, a failure or intense situation that you triumphed in the end? That's a really great place to look for a story. So that somebody will say, oh, I fell out of the raft on a river rafting trip and almost drowned, or I, you know, jumped out of an airplane, or I lost my company, and, you know, great. So how they might tell that story again at the dinner table isn't going to be useful for people, right? But if they ask themselves that question, how is this story going to be helpful for this particular audience? It really helps to know your audience. So I'm going to speak to a group of new entrepreneurs about how I lost my company and how to avoid them going into bankruptcy with their company. Okay, so that totally makes me tell the story in a different way than if I was just chatting with a friend, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So speaking on that, you mentioned the story about talking to those entrepreneurs and about how the company went bankrupt, and then basically how they got around that. So, like, how could I, or is it even good to do this? Tell somebody else's story to get that core point across.
Yeah, that's really important. People think, oh, I always have to tell my own stories, but there's lots of public domain stories or stories about your client, success stories that you can tell, of course. And what if you don't have any success stories with your clients that you're just starting out? So then you can tell the success story of somebody else who does what you do. And that's okay. You know, if you attribute the story to the right person, don't pretend that it's yours. That's very important. And people will do that, right? New speakers will do that. They'll read something in Chicken Soup for the Soul and then tell it like it's their story. And if somebody in the audience will go, I read that in Chicken Soup for the Soul. That's not your story. And then your credibility goes down, right? So, but you can. So, for example, you know, I tell a story of a woman who had been speaking for 20 years, and because she had all these best-selling books on her topics, but she never got a standing ovation. And her partner, who co-wrote all the books with her, she would speak on the exact same topics and always get a standing ovation. And she came to me and she said, I want one too. How do I get one? And so it's a story. It's a big personal why story. So you take people on a mythic journey that feels relevant to them, and you usually get a standing ovation. I know what helps people get standing ovations. So I tell that story of how she had to get out of her academic mindset and go into really think through, like, how did she create the success in her life and what were the obstacles she had to overcome. And once we did that and told it like that, boom, standing ovation, right? So that's a story I tell of, to prove the point, you need a good why story. And so that's talking about her. But when I was first starting out coaching speakers, I told another speaker coach's story about doing that same thing until I had my own story. And she was cool with that. And, you know, I attribute it to her. But it proved the point that you need stories to be a potent speaker.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So One last question for you, Carla, on this. So I know we talked about a lot about just the story telling in the process and how you can do that via social media and on the stage. So speaking on the step telling the stories, how can you tell a story that motivates people to buy something that you want them to buy from the stage, make them go running to go grab your product?
Right. Well, again, I think stories do that. You tell, if I tell a story about helping a speaker get a standing ovation after 20 years of speaking, people kind of go, oh, first off, I've just told them that I'm a coach. And secondly, that I help people get standing ovations. Oh, well, right. So then I say at the end, oh, by the way, I am a coach and I help people get standing ovations. I've just proven that I do that. I don't have to say anything else, right? They're like, oh, I want that too. So that's one big way to do it is case studies of what you did with people, but you're teaching something in the process of telling the story. So it doesn't sound like I'm bragging, look how great I am. It's just like, I have these techniques and I applied them to a real person who had real world problems and got a solution. It may or may not work for you, but it worked for them. And so for a listener, that's way more, they're much more likely to be open to what you're saying because you've told it in detail of a real life story, as opposed to just going, I'm a really good coach and I can help you do really well, right? It's like, well, how can you prove that, right? And we don't, people aren't thinking that when they're listening, but it's happening subconsciously. They're more open to what you have to say because you've told it as a detailed story.
Wow, Carla, that was great. And this has been an awesome conversation with you, just learning more about how to tell stories. And so for that person, and I know it's a lot of those people out there that want to learn more about storytelling, to learn about your coaching, where should they go?
Well, there's a link on, you can go to my website, which is artistryofchange.com. And if you go to the free tab, you'll see that I have a storytelling in business webinar. And there might be a link on this page somewhere as well. You can go there. And it's 7 steps to making your stories go viral. And so it's a free training that you can access. And it gives you a whole worksheet, like just fill in the blanks. And, it's like storytelling paint by numbers. And so a lot of people go, I don't know where to find a story or if I have any. But if I lead you through this process, helps you come up with a potent why story, and then helps you brainstorm on all the different ways to use it to promote yourself in your speaking. And so it's a fun little training.
Oh, that sounds awesome. So folks, you definitely want to go right now and pick that up. We're actually going to make sure we link to that so that they can know where to go and then be able to go through the fun process of filling in those blanks so they know how to tell that story almost as good as you, Carla.
Yeah. And then on my website, you can find out about my coaching and other things we offer too. But so that's how you get some free extra training if you love this topic and want to learn more.
Awesome, Carla. Well, thank you so much. It's definitely been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you, Carla.
Thank you, Jay. It's been really fun talking to you.
Awesome. Same here. Take care.
Bye for now.